And let's talk about Iron Man, because I love this idea. Let's talk about limitation. I believe that limitation breeds creativity. If you are forced, I think old school RuneScape is a perfect example of that. If you are forced to exist and create within a confine, you will find every possible thing you can do within that confine. You can't just say, oh, we'll fix it later, we'll find something else later. You have to find what's there now. And RuneScape has self-imposed limitation through the Iron Man gameplay mode, and more recently the group Iron Man, Elena, that you've been working on as well. You can't trade with other players, you can't pick up drops from others not in your team, or even Ultimate Iron Man, where you can't use your bank, which is insane. And when you're discussing these limitation modes, which are worth your time as programmers to actually hard program into the game, and which are just silly systems that players are asking for now that you know don't really have a shelf life, like no teleport mode, man, or area locked accounts, adding a hunger and thirst system that everyone seems to suggest for every game ever. Which limitations are worth designing, which aren't, and why is Iron Man mode, which is a single-player experience within an MMO, why is that so popular? Let's break that question into two parts. First of all, Kieran, which limitations are worth designing in?
Well, to use Iron Man as the first example, that's the first major game mode we added. But it's driven by the community at its core. So Iron Man, it came from streamers like Boaty and Foe, who basically did unofficial Iron Man accounts. So they weren't actually restricted, but they self-imposed those restrictions to experience the game in a different way. And through the process of them playing those accounts, and it popularized it, obviously, with their audiences, really enjoyed seeing, well, how does the game play if you're playing it in this way? But at the same time, it also lets us realize, actually, this actually works quite well. So look, most of these cases, though, where we're adding things like this, we already have demonstrable proof that it works, or we understand what the limitations are. Does it make the game interesting? Does it just make it tedious? Because sometimes it's a bit of both, and, you've got to have some trade-off, but Iron Man really does enhance different parts of the game, and, content that you would never do on a normal account because you would just go to the Grand Exchange and buy it, suddenly has value. So you play different parts of the game that you just wouldn't play on a normal account. And this game is about goals and achievements. Those all feel so much better. They feel so amplified when you achieve these things with further limitations. It's essentially playing on a hard mode difficulty setting to a degree, right?
Yeah.
You get that 99 herb lore. God, it feels good because it's such a pain to do on an Iron Man. And sort of touching on the single player element, kind of think RuneScape's always kind of been a single player like MMO, even before Iron Man. So much of the game is about that journey of your character progressing up the levels, completing the quests, and so on. That it is an individual journey. What is your next goal? Do you want to unlock the ancient spells and complete Desert Treasure? Do you want to get the Rune Plate Body and beat Dragon Slayer? Whatever it is, that's about you. It's about what you want to do. So what you need to do to get there is very much linked to you. So you don't often do much with other players. And it is something we're trying to do more of. I think a lot of the content is kind of anti-other players, right? You're chopping trees. You don't want somebody else next to you because it means the tree's going to fall down quicker. That's not good for you. So we're trying to add more content that is far more social friendly to do in a group of people, with your friends, with strangers, such that you can chat to them at the same time. But it's a really interesting topic. We could talk about it for hours, I'm sure. But
the mining...
Elena, do you want to... Sorry.
The mining and smithing rework was a perfect example in RuneScape 3 of how you can encourage people to mine and smith together because it now isn't competing with people. But Elena, how do you feel that RuneScape approaches being a single-player game? And from like a raid's point of view, you know someone's going to solo this raid at some point. When you're designing it, do you design and think, we've got to make it solo possible, we've got to make it solo friendly at some point? We literally can't have a mechanic that you can't do solo because someone's going to try and do it. How do you feel about RuneScape being a solo game?
I think it's very much a solo game set in a multiplayer world. And like Kieran said, we're kind of working against that now. We're trying to do more group activities and stuff, but traditionally it is very much solo focused, which at its core isn't necessarily bad, it just means that, you have that meaningful progression still at its core, and that's very hard to fit in if you're progressing as a group, right? Because people usually progress at different levels. I'm sure we've all been there, where you start a new game with someone and then they can't put in as much time as you, or the other way around, and then someone suddenly is level 30 while you're at 5, right?
Same as Josh letting down his group Iron Man group.
Yeah,
right?
for example, right?
Yeah, I log back in and I'm still doing Rune Mysteries, and I check the Iron Man bank and they've got a full Barrows set, and I thought I can't even wear it yet. Sorry, Elena, carry on.
Where was I?
Quick question. Has Raids 3 been soloed by any of the developers yet? When you were designing it and developing it has been soloed, so it is physically possible to do.
It is.
Oh, we're going to see who does it first then.
It's going to be super interesting. It has, without going too much into raids, it has different difficulty settings that you kind of enable yourself. So it's very much up to you how hard the raid really is. But no one's been able to solo it at, the hardest difficulty yet. I don't even know if any player will on launch. So that's going to be super interesting to see for sure.
You just laid a gauntlet down now. You've just absolutely called out the entire community of soloing Raids 3 when it comes out.